Good morning. We are going to be looking at the law of sines and cosines together today and determining when we will use them, or when we will use one, when we will use the other. So, you will use the law of sines when you have two angles and one side. So if you have angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle, both of those include two angles and one side. Or when you have two sides and one angle. So side, side, angle. Now you can use the law of cosines when you have two sides and one angle. When you have side, angle, side. So when the angle is between the two sides, or when you're given three sides, which is side, 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 you'll have to find the largest angle first. Alright, so let's look at example 1. We're given this triangle here. Alright, we are given a side, angle, and a side. Okay, so we can use the law of cosines to find what we're looking for. Okay? So, side, angle, side. We have an angle and we don't know what EF is. So let's just use X for EF. Okay, so let's do X squared. I'll just use this one. Equals our two sides, 7 squared plus 10 squared, minus 2 times 7 times 10, times the cosine of our angle, which is 132. Okay, so we're going to work that out and solve. That's 49 plus 100 minus 140 cosine 132. Okay, so I'm going to put that in my calculator. This is going to be 140 times cosine of 132 is negative 93.7. This is 149. Those two negatives make a positive. Okay, so I'm going to add these two. So 140 plus 149 plus 93.7 gives me 242.7. And then to get the x by itself, I take the square root. So it's 15.6. Okay, now that is what we found was EF. Okay, so now I'm going to write in 15.6 here. Now we have all three sides, and we're missing the two angles. Okay, so we can set up now the law of sines, because we have side, side, angle. All right, so let's use sine 132, because that's the only angle we have. Its corresponding answer is 15.6. Okay, and let's find this. Let's find E first. So the sine of angle E, and its corresponding side is 10. Okay? So, cross multiply. So you get 15.6 times the sine of E equals, cross multiply the other way, 10 times the sine of 132. To get sine of E by itself, you're going to divide by 15.6. And now, remember when you're finding an angle, you're using the inverse sign. So shift sine, in that parentheses, 10 times the sine of 132 divided by 15.6. That's going to give you 28.4. So E equals 28.4 degrees. Okay, now, if we know, I'm going to erase some of this, that this is 28.4 and this is 132. If you remember, the whole triangle side, or triangle measures, add up to 180. So we can say 28.4 plus 132. And then we can subtract that from 180. It's 160.4. And so 180 minus that is 19.6. Okay? So let's look at another one. I'm going to erase some of this. Alright, this one has given us two angles and a side. So angle, angle, side. Okay? So we can use the law of sines. So we have one angle and its corresponding side is 5. So sine of 129 over 5 equals, we're given this angle, so the sine of 21 over, we're looking for this side. We're going to make that x. Okay, so now we can cross multiply. So that's x times the sine of 129 equals 5 times the sine of 21. So to get x by itself, we divide by sine of 129. Okay? And that's going to give us x equals 5 times the sine of 21 divided by the sine of 129. So 5 times the sine of 21 divided by the sine of 129. Should give you 2.3. Now x was mn, so we got 2.3 here. Okay? So we have that side. Now, in order to do the other, we need to know the angle measure. We can easily find the angle measure because we know this is 129, this is that's 21. So that gives us 150, and the total, remember, is 180. So 180 minus 150 is 30. So our angle measure for measure of angle N is 30 degrees. Okay, so now we can set up the law of sines again to find this side. Let's make that y. So we got the sine of 30 over y, because that's its corresponding side. And I'm going to use one that we already had, equals the sine of 129 over its corresponding side, which is 5. Again, once you get your proportion, you cross multiply. So 5 times the sine of 30 equals y times the sine of 129. To get y by itself, divide. And get y equals 5 times the sine of 30 divided by the sine of 129. You get 3.2. Okay, so if you see, you can just put them together, see what you have, and then find information from there. Here, we have two sides and we have an angle. So side, side, angle. So again, we can use the law of sines here. And we want to use the law of sines because it's going to be easier and shorter than using the law of cosines. Okay, so if you can use the law of sines, use it. Alright, so we got side, side, angle. So this angle, we're going to say sine of 98 corresponds with that side, which is 28. Okay, we have 17. we don't have that angle, so let's make it angle, it is angle x. So we're going to say the sine of x over 17. Cross multiply. Cross multiply again. And then you want to get the sine of x by itself, so divide by 28. Now remember to find the angle measure, you need to do inverse sine. So it's going to be the sine of -1, and this is going to be in your parentheses. So shift sine 17 times the sine of 98 divided by 28. And that is 36.95, which we're going to round to 37 degrees. Okay, now let's figure out what that was. That was angle x. So 37 degrees. All right, so let's erase this. And we know that this is now 37, which we can easily find angle W. So 37 plus 98 is 135. And then we can subtract that from 180. And we're going to get 45. So the measure of angle W is 45 degrees. So now we can set up another law of sines to find our last missing side length, which I'm going to label A. It doesn't matter what you label it. Now we have two angles, and we're looking for a side. So let's use our 98. So sine of 98 over its corresponding side, which is 28, equals the sine of what we're looking for. So we're looking for A, we need to use its corresponding angle. So the sine of 45 over A. Your proportion means you can cross multiply, so 28 times the sine of 45 equals A times the sine of 98. You get A by itself by dividing by the sine of 98. These cancel, and A equals this. Okay, so you're going to do 28 times the sine of 45 divided by the sine of 98. You get 19.99, which is going to round to 20. So that's 20. So that was XY. Okay, one more example. Okay, this gives us three sides. Side, side, side. Told us to use the law of cosines. Okay, so we need to find an angle. We need to find the largest angle first. The way you can know which one is the largest angle is the one corresponding to the largest side. Okay, so according to the law of cosines, let's just say this. Minus 2 times B times C times the cosine of A. Okay, so let's plug in. You got 29 squared equals, and that's what we're looking for. We're putting B there because that's what we're looking for. Really, I should have swapped the letters. That's okay. We're using the other two sides here. Minus 2 times 14 times 24 times the cosine of the angle, which we don't know. Okay, so let's simplify. 29 squared is 841. 14 squared is 196. And 24 squared is 576. 2 times 14 times 24, you can't put cosine in there, is 676 times the cosine of B. Add these. You get 772. Remember, you can't put those together because it's connected to the cosine. And then you got to get rid of that 772. That's 69 equals negative 676 times the cosine of B. You got to get rid of that 676, so we divide So we're left with the cosine of b. And remember, when we try to find that angle, we're doing inverse. So inverse cosine 69 divided by negative 676 is 95.9. And that's an angle, so it is in degrees. So angle B, 95.9 degrees. Now, since we now have an angle, let's put that there. Now we have angle side angle. And we can use the law of sines to find the rest. All right, so I'm gonna do it down here. Just know that this is not example 5. We're not gonna do example 5, or I'm not. You can. Okay, so we're gonna use the law of sines. We have an angle. It's a sine of 95.9 over its corresponding side, which is 29. All right, now it doesn't matter which one you find. We can find A or we can find C. Let's just use A because we're going to be using a smaller number. So we need to find the sine of A, and it corresponds to 14. So to get the sine of A by itself, we multiply both sides by 14. And that's going to give us the sine of A equals 14 times the sine of 95.9 divided by 29. So when we're finding an angle, that's when we use the inverse sign. So shift sine 14 times the sine of 95.9. I'm going to close that parentheses, divided by 29. Close that one. And you should get 28.7. And that's an angle measure, so it is in degrees. All right, and that was angle A, so 28.7. So now that we have two angles, we can add those up and subtract from 180 to find the last one. So you get 28.7 plus 95.9. That gives you 124.6. And then you're going to do 180 minus that. Just 55.4. And that's going to be your angle C. Okay, let's look at a few word problems. A wire 30 inches long is bent into a triangle with sides measuring 6 inches, 11 inches, and 13 inches. All right, so let's draw us a triangle. Okay, 6 inches, 11 inches, and 13 inches. Find the measure of the largest angle in the triangle. Now, it doesn't tell us it's a right angle. That's how we know we're going to use the law of sines or cosines. If it's a right angle, then we use other things. We use trig. Okay. So how do we know which one's the largest angle? Well, it's going to be across from the largest side, which is 13. So this is the angle we're looking for. Okay, if we're given side, 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 that means we're using the law of cosines. So the one that we're looking for always goes first. So that's 13 squared equals the other two sides squared and added. So 6 squared plus 11 squared minus 2 times those sides again, 6 and 11, times the cosine of the angle we're looking for, so x. Simplify those, that's 169, 36, 121. And then 2 times 6 times 11 is 132. And this is supposed to be a minus, not an equals. Okay, so we can put these together. That's 157. We cannot put that with the 132. It's connected to the cosine. So now we can subtract 157. You get 12 equals negative 132 times the cosine of x. Now, to get rid of the 132, you're going to divide. And so when you're finding the angle, remember you do the inverse. So shift cosine of 12 divided by negative 132. and that's 95.2. And it was an angle, so it's degrees. Alright, let's look at another one. Tia and Braden are standing 12 feet apart from each other on opposite sides of an in-ground swimming pool. They spot a pair of goggles on the pool floor between them. The angle of depression from Tia and Braden to the goggles is 65 and 28 respectively. Find the direct distance from Tia to the goggles. Okay, so let's look. They're standing here. Here's Braden. Here's Tia. Okay, they're 12 feet apart. They spot goggles at the bottom of the pool. Here's their goggles. Okay, angle of depression from Tia and Braden to the goggles is 65 and 28. So see it, 65 is Tia, 28 is Braden. Find the direct distance from Tia to the goggles. So what we're looking for from Tia to the goggles is here. Okay, we can easily know this angle, but we don't need it. Actually, we do need it because we have that corresponding side. Okay, so let's go ahead and find that angle. All the angles in a triangle add up to 180, so you can say 28 plus 65 and subtract from 180. Okay, so that's 87. Let's make that a little clearer. Okay, so now we can use the law of sines because we have all of our angles and we have corresponding sides. So the sine of 87 over 12, that's its corresponding side, and then we have to use the angle that is corresponding to the x. So the sine of 28 over x. Once you're here and you have a proportion, you can cross multiply. That's x times the sine of 87 equals 12 times the sine of 28. Get x by itself, you divide by the sine of 87. So x equals 12 times sine of 28 divided by the sine of 87. So 12 sine 28 divided by the sine of 87. You get 5.6. So that's how far she is from the goggles. Alright, let's look at one more. Alright, starting from the same port, ship A and ship B sailed apart with a 30-degree angle between them. Okay. So we got ship A, ship B, and here's their 30-degree angle. Ship A sailed 5 miles. Ship B sailed 8 miles. Find the distance between the ships. We are looking for this. Okay? So, since we have side, angle, side, we're going to be using the law of cosines. This is our angle that we have. This is the corresponding side, so that's what we're looking for. That's what we start with. You use the other two sides here, 5 squared plus 8 squared, minus 2 times those two sides again, times the cosine of the angle that we have. So x squared equals 25 plus 64, and you can multiply all of this together since you have that angle. So 2 times 5 times 8 times the cosine of 30, which is 69.3. So now we can put all this together. So 25 plus 64 minus 69.3, and you get 19.7. And then to get x by itself, you take the square root. Square root of that is 4.4. And they were that many miles apart. Okay, if you have any questions, let us know. Have a good day.